Well, Tim wants to know all things weather. So Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley is here, and he's answering your questions. And all you have to do is text in your question, 336-379-5775. We're going to get out of hurricanes for a short bit of time because we've got these questions. All right, we are already at October the 8th, and there are no colored leaves like the fall should be. What is happening with this?
Yeah, I guess, October 8th, you're in the fall season, you're getting the different coffees already, you're ready to go. It's not always time for our leaves to change here like you might think.
Okay.
And in fact, this is kind of an average, very broad brush strokes here, but if we look at the kind of climatology of when the leaves change in our area, we're in that late October, early November range here in the Triad. And I do have bad news for you. Over the last couple of years and last couple of decades, that date for when the leaves are changing, it is getting later and later. As the climate gets a little bit warmer, you have warmer summers, you have warmer falls, it kind of takes a little bit longer for them to get going sometimes. There's a lot more that goes into it. Sometimes dry weather can affect it. But for our purposes in North Carolina, usually the mountains get started in early October, right about now. And around here, it's usually closer to late October. Having said all that, I was just out and about today. I saw a couple leaves that were changing. Nothing crazy, nothing big.
No, I only have a few things in my neighborhood, like a few little touches here and there, but it's not like widespread.
For peak color here, I'd say we got to wait until about Halloween.
Okay.
For this year.
Well, from one season to the next.
Okay.
This is always the question we get. When are we going to see snow this year?
Gosh, oh man. When are we going to see it, or if we're going to see it might be the better question. My answer to that is always that we usually have snow. We almost always have some. The last 2 winters, we've had not a flake. And the last time that happened was 30 years ago. In the early 90s, we had a couple seasons in a row without snowfall. That's the only time that it's happened in, gosh, at least 50 years. So we're in a rare spot right now. Not only have we not had a flake of snow in a while, we haven't had a big one since 2018. So if you're a snow lover, this is bad times, right? I do think we'll get at least something this year. It's impossible to say where we stand right here in October, when it would happen, how it would happen, but we usually get snow. There's only a couple years on record where we don't have it. But usually it's not as much as you want if you're a snow lover.
And no woolly worm is going to tell us, or how many acorns are dropping or anything?
I have to tell you, last couple of years, the woolly worms, they were all signaling the snowfall. The acorns were falling around too, and it doesn't always work.
Okay. All right, so we're back to hurricane questions.
Okay.
Is it true that hurricanes cannot cross the equator?
That's a great question, and the answer is true.
Really?
They cannot cross the equator. And I know that sounds impossible.
Is it like an invisible fence, like the dog can't get past it, or what's the deal?
It is like an invisible fence.
Okay.
And if I had time, I would have made up a cool graphic, but we're getting these live here for you. If you look at a map of all the hurricanes that have ever happened, you're going to notice a big gap right around the equator. The reason is having to do with why weather systems spin in the first place. So a hurricane forms, you get all this rising air, you get thunderstorms, you get a strong storm. Well, the Earth is always rotating underneath us. Hurricanes are up in the air. So the Earth is rotating underneath it, and you get a little bit of spinning motion. So like you learn in school, hurricanes spin counterclockwise. In the southern hemisphere, that force of the Earth rotating underneath it is opposite. So down there, they spin clockwise. Yeah. So it's an opposite spin. So that motion of the spinning is always pushing them away from the equator. So if they form near Africa, they're going to be generally turning northward. And if they form in South America or something, they're going to turn away from the equator as well. So on record, we've not observed one to cross the equator, and it has to do with that spinning motion always pushing them away.
Okay.
I know it's wacky to think about, but just think of it like a big mountain that they kind of can't climb,
Gotcha. Okay. Why do you publish the barometric pressure in millibars? Every barometer I've ever had was calibrated in inches of mercury.
It's a great question. I don't know that I have the answer for that, other than saying it's tradition. Right? So for you know what I'll tell you? Sometimes you go to the store and you see things measured in quarts and cups, and then you got a 2 liter of Coke. Why do they say 2 liters of Coke? I don't know. There's no reason that I can think of for that, but that's just the way that it's done. When it comes to weather, you're right that most barometers are in inches of mercury, but across the weather world, for some reason, tropical systems in particular, and most weather observations, they're measured in millibars. I'm sure there's a better explanation than that right there, but it is tradition in the weather community to do it that way. And it's an international standard. Hurricanes are international storms. They affect a lot of different places, so it kind of just bridges the gap, whereas inches of mercury, that's more of an English metric thing that we use in in the States, but not so much elsewhere.
Okay, well, someone also asked about the millibars. They said that Milton is on record being like maybe the 5th strongest, and you're deciding that by the millibars, 897 MB.
Right.
What does that mean?
Sure. I would mostly just say don't worry about it, but the lower the number. So the lower the number, the lower the pressure is. So when it comes to, it's like a game of golf. The best score for golf would be to be under par, or the lowest number. When it comes to pressure, the stronger the storm, the lower the pressure is. On average, just forgetting what millibars even means, on average, our pressure is about 1,010 millibars. So 897 is close to the lowest limit of air pressure like on planet Earth. And a lower pressure means that air is rushing to the middle of that low pressure system, where it's going to be just creating the strongest winds imaginable.
Okay, all right. So we're continuing on with this. We know you have weather questions. We've already answered the snow question, by the way, and I know more of you are asking
It's a big old maybe, folks.
336-379-5775. We'll be back in a few minutes.